Last time on the Wordy Pair.
This type of anime is the type of anime that older anime looks at and feels and has that uncanny valley feeling while watching. They tell you everything at the. I mean, they get Vash coming into a bar and everyone's saying,
no. They don't tell you everything. It gets worse. You have no idea how much worse it gets.
So they invent new things, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is a Ted Bundying of all that makes Trigun good. I've already said it.
You have already said it.
And we see the explosion engulf Rem save Rem in one continuous cut.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly and I wasn't having a stroke.
Yeah.
Legato Blue Summers.
Yeah.
Veritable god in the original anime.
Yeah.
An unstoppable force, as you said, shackled only by knives.
Yes.
Is taken out by a little bit of a roadside incident and never
They don't
heard
even get
from
into
again.
a crash, really. There's a rock that falls in front of them, and then they break, and they do the little J-turn thing, and then you never see Legato Blue Summers again. And now, the rant continues. So if you finish watching Stampede, you find out that they throw a few more member berries at you with the intention of making it so that you believe there's going to be a second season. Oh, and by the way, the premise for the second season is this, that a transmission goes back to Earth, and all of Earth has become evil now. And they're going to warp to the planet No Man's Land, which is what they call the planet in Trigun Stampede, and do something.
Are they actually making the second season?
I hope not.
I feel like there wasn't enough interest in this for anyone to bother.
I mean,
but
it came out in 2023, and there's been this. I mean, back in the day, when a series was good, or when a series was intended to go on for a long time, generally speaking, the series would run its course in one contiguous thing. That's how things used to be. These days, it's not like that. Series now get another season 9 years after the previous season came out. So God only knows if some monster is going to fund another season of Trigun Stampede at some point in the future.
Well, I know this much. Given the trend of anime lately, it has a much better chance than us ever seeing another season of Index.
Yeah.
They're breaking the pattern, by the way. They are doing another season of Railgun, but they used to do a season of Index and then a season of Railgun and then a season of Index again. This would be the second season in a row of Railgun this time. So I guess they're just done with the main storyline?
I guess so.
Because Railgun was a spin-off, just saying. And Index was the interesting, long-running series that everyone was there for to begin with, and they just happened to enjoy Railgun as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've even done an Accelerator spin-off now, and it's just like, okay, are we going to get back? I don't know, because Index is one of those shows where it's pretty decently animated, but it's not like super budget-breaking like a lot of the anime they make now, and
Sure.
Seems like everyone just wants to make the budget-breaking anime that they make now. And so they make a season, they wait 5 years, and then they make another season, and then they wait 10 years, and then they make another season, and then they wonder why there's no interest in it. I mean, when did Index start? You and I have liked Index since it started.
Yeah, I mean, 2007, 2008?
Yeah, and after that first season came out, it was about a 5-year wait for the second season, wasn't it?
The second season, I think, for Index came out fairly soon thereafter, but not... It was one of the few ones where there was, like, a year or two between them. And it wasn't...
Oh, no, yeah, because
the first season of Index was technically 2 seasons. It was 24 or 25 episodes, I think, too. So, like, they... this was in this weird hybrid time when you would get... First off, it used to be that anime seasons were 13 episodes. Now they're 12. And... Then it used to be that, there were a lot of shows that actually got like a full 2-season run, and that would be it. And some of them would get 2-season runs, or 3-season runs, or 4-season runs. Like I think Rurouni Kenshin got 4 seasons. Rurouni Kenshin had 91 episodes. And there was no pause. There was no hiatus as far as I remember. This was a thing that happened back in the day, is that a show would run until they finished the show. They don't do that anymore. And there was this weird time where they kind of half did it, where like they did, I think, 3 of the Index books in the first 25, 26 episodes, and then they did another 3 books. And then they, skipped a bunch and did another 3 books. I don't know. The 3rd season of Index was still fun, but it was not as well encapsulated as the first.
It wasn't
2.
as organized as the first 2. And
Right.
the funny thing about it was, I think you're right. I think it was only a couple of years, but I even remember back then thinking, well, wait, Index was really great. How come there's not another season of this show coming out? And
Right.
we waited those 2 years, and that up until that point, that had not been the normal. And it was after that where it seemed like every show that came out, if it was a good show, even if it was like sometimes it's just not a popular show.
Yeah,
but sometimes it is. And it didn't seem to matter anymore whether it was popular or not. You were waiting a year or 2 for the next season. But then after the 2nd season of Index, it was like 11 years before the 3rd season came out.
Well, to be fair, we did have a 2-season run, a 20-some episode run of Railgun, and then the 2nd run of Railgun in between as well. So
yeah, and then we had...
Index is a weird animal. And we had a movie, too.
A movie, and we had the Accelerator
And usually the movie is like, okay, we're done with this now, right? That's how that usually works, but apparently not anymore.
It's just really weird. It's just like your fan base is going to be gone by the time you finish this. I mean,
yeah, but let's get back to the horror.
The horror of Legato Blue Summers
Stampede.
being run into a boulder.
I mean, that's just, at least they didn't like have him yell at Vash, "You hate me because my hair is blue," and then shoot himself in the head. Right? That could have been something that happened in Trigun Stampede.
Well,
I wouldn't have put it past them.
He could have fired and then jumped in front of the bullet.
Well, no, that's for Knives to do. They had to save that because it's so good.
They should have had Legato Blue Summers come running up right after him, right after Knives jumps into the path of the beam. Blue Summers jumps in after him and says, "Wait for me," and gets taken out with him. That would have been perfect for.
I mean, that would have been
how horrendous this show is.
Okay, in the original series, there is a very long-running and very organically and slow-growing relationship between Meryl and Vash. She doesn't like him. She's not like a typical tsundere kind of character. Like, she genuinely doesn't like him for a good chunk of the series. But
and she's trying to keep him out of trouble.
Yes, and she's failing at that. But at the same time, gradually she learns that all of the stuff that's gone down around him that's caused so much destruction, he's been at the center of these things trying his hardest to make sure they don't happen every single time. And every time that people say that they hate him, he never stands up for himself. He always takes whatever tongue lashing humanity has for him. He never really tries to defend himself. There are even cases where someone has a reason to kill someone in the original series, and when someone is trying to kill someone for a valid reason, Vash's Stampede doesn't force them to stop. He asks them to stop. That's a very important thing, because what it means is that Vash in the original series has enough self-consciousness to realize that he's not living in a pacifist world, and that that there are people who have done horrible things, and maybe the proper punishment for them is death. And so, like, for instance, there's a couple of instances of this in the original series. The one that I remember most is when they're in New Oregon, and he's just about getting ready to go up into the ship that has the Typhoon Jacqueline around it as cover. There's they ram the steamer into the satellite station, and there's the one guy who's like, "I'm going to kill the 4th son of this Polo family because he killed my daughter." Not only did he kill my daughter, like Trigun Stampede, he violated and killed my daughter. And when he has his gun pointed at this kid named Slater, and when I say kid, I mean he's 23 or something like that, right? Vash tries to stop him. Vash has his gun. Vash can knock people out by hitting them with his gun. We've seen it before. Vash is fast and strong and all that stuff. He doesn't use that force against this bereaved father. He tries to put hands on him at first, And he doesn't, he obviously he could win this fight, but he doesn't actually fight such that he uses all of his power against this guy, because deep down he understands kind of that this guy is not entirely wrong. And then, the guy knocks him away, and Vash sits there pleading with him to not dirty his hands over this monster that he's planning to kill. And, in the end, it's Vash's pleas that tell him that he shouldn't do that he shouldn't bring himself down to that level, and not Vash just knocking him out with the butt of his gun or something like that. Like, the Vash in Trigun Stampede is just like a
Vash is an
cowardly
example
pacifist.
well, he's an example of a good way to break tropes.
I guess.
Because that is the trope. It's like, oh, well, I'll just knock this guy out so that he doesn't do the bad thing. But
Oh, no, you're talking about the original series again.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, oh God, no, I'm not giving any credit to whatever I was
Okay,
watching.
good, because there's
recently.
none of that. Vash. Okay, so you remember when we were talking about the Batman vs Superman movie?
Yeah.
And I talked about how in the early cartoons and stuff, Superman would always save the people who were like falling out of a building, kind of thing. He was fast enough that he could save these people. And he could get rid of collateral damage. And then for Man of Steel, they abandoned that entirely. Superman doesn't even try to save the people that are falling out of these buildings that are being destroyed. Well, they did the same thing to Vash in this. In Trigun Stampede, Vash doesn't actually try to prevent anyone's deaths anymore.
But he's Vash.
Yeah, I know.
That is exactly what Vash does.
Yeah.
What does he do?
Let's see. He just doesn't do anything.
He's just
He
inert.
doesn't care.
Vash
He just
the
doesn't
inert?
really care. He does other things, right? Like in
He
the same way
doesn't
that Superman
care?
decided. Pretty much, yeah.
Oh my God.
There's a point in the original series where they're teaching Vash and Knives about human history. And Knives brings up a very valid point. He says, according to the data that you've shown me, it looks as if humanity was the cause of the environmental disasters on Earth. And the captain, whose name is Joey, says, you're right. It was us. We did do that. And the reason we're here on these ships, and the reason that we're relying on these plants that we've been so lucky to have with you, is because we're going to try very hard to redeem ourselves after those mistakes that we've made over a long period of time on Earth. Right? There is an exposure of the sins of humanity to Vash and Knives, because they're not human. They're learning this, and they're actually forthright about it. They're like, yeah, this is what we did, and we recognize it was bad, and we're going to try to live our lives in a better way from now on.
So this show literally
now the thing about the original series, right, is that Knives takes the conclusion that mankind will always be parasites and they need to be destroyed. And that's the wrong conclusion. That's the point of the show, is that people should be able to make mistakes and still turn around and fix things afterwards. And Knives doesn't believe that for humanity. He says, just get rid of them. Now, in Trigun Stampede, number 1, all of the information about humanity. First off, the only person that we see dealing with Vash and Knives is Rem. We never see any other crew members on that ship throughout the multiple flashbacks throughout the series.
Right.
Number 2, she doesn't tell them that mankind are the ones that damaged Earth originally. Number 3, that information is also locked away from Vash and Knives. Vash, for some reason, gets the password. Knives inputs it and finds out that humanity did this and never talks to Rem about it, as far as we know. There's no point. So now, in Trigun Stampede, it looks like humanity has not at all learned its lesson. That they are totally willing to hide the facts of their own mistakes from Vash and Knives in an effort to get them to be part of their efforts to continue to live on this new planet, wherever it happens to be. But it's worse than that, because the same password that unlocks these basic historical records of humanity, number one, it's the same password to tell all the ships to crash into the surface of the planet. And number two,
What?
It's the same password to also discover that there was a third, they call them independents, like Vash and Knives, and they dissected her.
Huh.
And not only did they dissect her, but they keep all of her parts in vats that come out of the floor if you put in the password.
So,
and since we never see any other crew members, the assumption is that Rem did this, because there's no one else to do it.
all right, so
we've now violated and killed the theme of the redemption of humanity and the character of Rem Save Rem. Isn't that wonderful?
I guess that leaves Wolfwood.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does leave Wolfwood. So, Wolfwood appears in, I think, the third or fourth episode of Trigun Stampede. Let's go back to the original for a bit, because we don't get a lot on Wolfwood. We get a lot of him in the second half of the series, and we get some minor ideas about his history. Generally speaking, he is a kid who, as a kid, he had a very bad guardian, killed his guardian, and then he was brought into this Gung-Ho Guns kind of training program. He's being trained by Chapel the Evergreen. And he's being trained to make the best decision you can think of instantaneously. That's Chapel's entire philosophy. Make the best choice now. Never, ever hesitate. And Wolfwood has lived his entire life by this principle. And he's had some good results from it and some bad results from it. He is someone who loves children very much, like in a fatherly sense. He runs an orphanage in a city called December. And part of the reason that he's in this job to keep an eye on Vash the Stampede and to guide him to a certain degree is because there's a threat. Chapel is threatening the children of the December orphanage. Now, upon watching Vash for months and months and months, at the very end of the original series, Vash spares Chapel the Evergreen. And Chapel says, I wasted the 10 years that I spent training you. And Wolfwood says, no, you didn't. I learned a lot, but I've decided to use it in my own way. And then, as Wolfwood walks away, Legato Blue Summers forces Chapel the Evergreen to shoot Wolfwood in the back. It's a lethal wound. Wolfwood walks across the city, has one last short conversation with Vash, in which Vash says, I wasn't able to save Kane the Longshot. And Wolfwood says, well, just try to do better next time. It's something that Wolfwood has never said before to Vash. And then Wolfwood walks into a church. He says, even though I kind of pass myself off as a priest, it's been a long time since I've actually been in a church and I've never gone to confession. And he has one last bit of memory and one last bit of hope, and then he dies. He's one of the most most interesting arcs, in any animated series, in any anime you'll ever see. Just like super interesting character. He's funny. He's fun. He's cool. He dresses sharply. He has a cool weaponry. You can't say enough good things about original series Wolfwood. Which leads me into Stampede Wolfwood. Number one.
This is going to be an incredibly painful moment, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you have no idea. We're going to start with character design. In the original series, Wolfwood is wearing kind of a takeoff on like a ministerial suit. He's got a black suit. He's got a white collar under it. Not like a collar, it's a V-neck kind of thing. He's carrying this heavy cross that actually turns out to be a really cool gun. He's sharply dressed. He's got, nice shoes. Trigun Stampede. First off, he shows up and he's got the cross, But he calls himself an undertaker, not a priest, from the very beginning. Number 2, he says pretty much immediately that he was there to guide Vash towards knives, whereas in the original series, there was a good chunk of the show where they imply that he's Chapel the Evergreen. And then, very late in the series, he says, Knives told me, or you told me, Chapel, you told me to bring Vash to Knives, and Chapel says that order's been rescinded. In Trigun Stampede, you find out that he's supposed to bring Vash to Knives 1 episode after you meet him. And not only that, they ruined his character design too, because as he walks up to an area, someone says, oh man, look at that guy, he's wearing a suit. He's not wearing a suit. He's wearing a jacket. He's got an open chest jacket.
I'm looking at a picture of him now.
Yeah. He's wearing a button-down shirt that's gray, not white, but gray, and it's untucked in a way that the original series Wolfwood would never look. He's wearing flood pants that stop like 1.5 inches or 2 or 3 inches above his ankles. And he's wearing slippers.
What in God's name is going on in people's heads?
I don't know.
He also doesn't have his signature giant schnoz. No,
he doesn't. He has nothing. He has no arc in Stampede. We never find anything out about his training. He has they added in instead a really stupid backstory for him, where previously in the original series he kind of did charity work. He did all this work where he was a hired gun, but what he did with the money was he funded this very real, very legitimate orphanage in December. In Stampede, they converted the orphanage into a front for a religious fanatic group that takes children and drugs them into super soldiers. And he's just one of those super soldiers. He has no training arc because the drug not only gives him super soldier powers, but it also advances his age. So, he's 10, and then they give him the drug, and then he's a full-grown man.
What, like that's, at the moment in which he's in the show?
Yes.
So the present time, he's actually only 10 years old.
Something like that, yes. I guess we don't know. Because they get a little bit funky about, when each character got the super soldier serum. They've been giving people super soldier serum for a while. But he's had no real, as far as we can tell, he's had no real time to gain life experience. He's had no training. There is no, as far as I can tell, there's no Chapel the Evergreen character for him to learn from. They cheapened the threat on the orphanage by turning it into a ticking clock for 1 episode, and then ignore it afterwards. He doesn't have the turnaround of character that he has in the original series. He's just along for the ride, and then when he gets Vash near Knives, he says, cool, I'm out. And he's actually out. He leaves the city and goes and sits outside and watches the city be destroyed. I've said this before, but they violated and killed his character.
No. The person that did this to Nicholas D. Wolfwood could sit in a room with Jeffrey Epstein, and Epstein would just turn to him like, dude, hey, what is this crap? You're a monster.
Wolfwood's not a monster in the original.
No. The person that did this to Wolfwood.
Oh, I see.
In Stampede, the person who wrote Wolfwood in this way is worse than Jeffrey Epstein, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to convey that the person that would do this to a character in a story has to be worse than Hitler. Has to be I get the feeling.
Oh, by the way.
Yes?
There's a very important line that Wolfwood has, and it's repeated a couple of times throughout the original series. Someone will pick up that cross of his and say, man, this thing is heavy. And he'll say, that's because it's full of mercy. Doesn't happen in Stampede.
But that's what makes the cross so cool.
I know.
It's not just cool because it's a big old gun thing. It's cool because it's this big secret he carries around.
Also, The original cross had 3 uses. One was as a kind of a machine gun. You grab a circular cutout in the middle of the cross, and the long end of the cross opens up and turns into a machine gun. It had the side parts of the cross could open up, and there were a bunch of handguns stashed in there in various states of readiness. And then it had a third function where the short top part of the cross could open up and shoot missiles. Now, I could be misremembering,
so it's
but I'm pretty sure it is a Trigun, yes. But I'm pretty sure that in Stampede it just has the machine gun function and no other functions. So they violated and killed Wolfwood's cross, too.
Well, it had a 4th use, too. He would stand behind it and it acted as a bullet shield.
Yes, it was cover. He never uses it as cover in the show, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so completely violated. They literally...
Because no one needs cover. Because everyone in Stampede is a terrible shot, except when they need to not be a terrible shot. Because... Okay.
But they violated the cross.
Yeah, they did.
I mean,
so
I just felt like it had to be worded that way.
It's a pretty common trope to have a hail of bullets, right?
Yeah.
And generally speaking, the reason that you get a hail of bullets is because there's a lot of people shooting, kind of in the same direction, right? You have a line of people, and they all have guns, and they're all shooting in the same direction. So you get this hail of bullets effect.
Yeah.
And in that case, a hail of bullets kind of makes sense. And in the original series, most of the time when you get this hail of bullets effect, it's because there's a lot of different people shooting at Vash or shooting at Wolfwood at the same time. In Stampede, you get the hail of bullets effect when a single person is shooting at another single person. And that's very hard to do because if one person is shooting, all of the bullets emanate from the same point. And so it wouldn't look like a hail of bullets, it would look like a fan-shape thing. But in Trigun Stampede, they frequently animate the other side of someone being shot at by one person as a hail of parallel bullets going by them at varying distances. It is frequently done.
Like on each side of them.
Yeah, there's a bullet that is going straight past them, but it's 10 feet away from them off to the side. Yeah. And nobody hits anything. Even these people who are supposedly really good at shooting because they're drugged up super soldiers can't. They just constantly hail bullets and miss constantly. Oh, and by the way, Vash is constantly using his mechanical arm to block bullets. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea, but it's not, and he does it a lot in Stampede, and a single bullet destroys his arm in the show, and it happens multiple times that way. He gets his arm stepped on, and that disables the gun because it twists it out of his out of feeding properly, kind of thing. Like he just uses his magical blue mechanical arm as a shield for everything.
You can't just do that. I mean, you
can't.
That's like Wonder Woman can do that, but Wonder Woman is a superhero. Vash the Stampede is not supposed to be a superhero.
Do you remember how Vash was funny in the original series? He's kind of goofy and funny, and there's something there because there's that one scene where Wolfwood's like, "Man, I always see you smiling, real happy, but it's a real empty smile, And he's like, I'm glad that I can see that you can smile for real. But at the same time, Vash is always joking, always laughing. He's very joyful about life. He loves food and donuts, and he's goofy and he makes jokes at his own expense. Not so in Stampede. He's never goofy. He's just pathetic. He doesn't like anything. He doesn't eat donuts. He doesn't do anything fun or funny. He never says love and peace. He says at one point in the original series, with one bullet, with what it costs me to buy one bullet, I can eat 4 hotcakes. And he says this immediately after eating 4 hotcakes. So it's funny. He's like, someone hands him a plate of pancakes, and he grabs these pancakes up, unhinges his jaw, and eats all of these pancakes in one bite, and says, well, it's wasteful to shoot everybody all the time. I can, with the cost of one bullet, I can eat 4 hotcakes just like this. In Stampede, he never carries ammo around because he just forgets to. His gun is a .22, and so he's constantly yelling, "Bring me some .22, bring me some .22, bring me some .22. He uses it more as a club than as a gun. And he has a scene where he says, I can, for the price of one bullet, I can eat 2 slices of pizza. But we never see him eating any pizza or donuts or anything, as far as I can tell, throughout the whole series.
So, like, all of the minor points that are supposed to be little extra bits that you get to attach to a character so that they're a little more fleshed out are just things that they stole from the original with no intention of putting in any context.
Most of them they didn't even bother to steal. Like I said, he never makes jokes. He never cries. The original Vash in the original series is an emotional character because of all the weight that's on him and all the things that happen around him. And the thing about Vash in the original series is that he has like a photographic memory for people. He remembers all the people's names when he sees that he met before once 15 years ago, and he sees a bunch of people dead on the floor in a room, and he's like, "Oh, I remember you," and he says their name, and I remember you, and he says their name, name, and then like the next episode, he sits down pretending to be happy, and then he remembers back all those people that he remembered and cared about dead on the floor, and he starts crying. And that's, Stampede Vash never does that either. He's just pathetic all the time.
I mean, I know the answer to this.
Yeah.
But did the people that wrote this, did they realize that when he was being pathetic, it was because he was being humble, not because he was actually pathetic?
No, they didn't realize that.
Like that whole scene where he's like naked out in the street and then like barking like a dog because he's being told to by the bad guys. He could easily kill all of those bad guys, but he's choosing to be humble to get them to go away.
It's not just that. It's not just that. He's appealing to their better nature. He said that he goes down into a dogeza bow, nose to the floor, and he says, "Please forgive, Lena for doing this." And they say, "Well, that's not enough. What you need to do is you need to, strip naked and act like a dog." And he says, "You'll keep your promise, right?" And then he does it.
Yeah.
It's even better than him just being humble. It's him appealing to the good side of this, monstrous bandit and saying, if that's what you ask, and if you're going to keep your promise, then that's what I'll do. Because my pride is not as important as this other person's life.
Yeah, and so New Vash doesn't do that at all.
No, there's none of that.
So you're not going to be particularly overwhelmed with joy when I tell you that I've been scrolling through the internet looking at Trigun Stampede's reception, and now to be fair, it's largely on Reddit, but people are saying that people are saying that Stampede is actually pretty good, and there's a lot of, I actually like it better than the original, and then it kind of devolves into arguments of
those
who
are
actually
Redditors.
Watched what. But there's also a little bit of that, like, it looks like YouTube has some of that and everything. There does seem to be a sizable amount of people who are like...
I mean, if you want, you can watch the whole of Stampede. I'm not going to stop you.
No, that's okay. You've told me enough. I might go through it just because I feel like sometimes we...
I mean, you and I should go through it together. That's what we should do.
People should not, like, be...
Drop me a line on Saturday or something, and we'll watch a couple episodes of Trigun Stampede. And any points that don't horrify you, I'll make sure they horrify you.
I mean, I know that none of this means anything, but, like, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got 100% on the average tomato meter and 73% on the popcorn meter. I don't know what the difference is. This is, like, the first time I've ever looked at Rotten Tomatoes. So one of them is
critics, professional critics, and then the other one is people that have actually watched it.
So the popcorn would be the people that have watched it. And they're still giving it a 73. I mean, okay, so, like...
maybe, like I said, we don't need to bicker, or argue about,
because we're not talking about the reception anyway. It's just that
we don't care what these people say about Trigun Stampede.
Yeah, it's just we are here to dissect the problem that is Trigun Stampede and be like, this is why this isn't really
Okay,
fun.
here we go. Another one. Brilliant Dynamite's Neon. Amazing character in the original series.
Okay, who was that?
That was the bandit guy of the Bad Lad gang. The head of the Bad Lad gang who they take over the sand steamer in like episode 6 and 7, I think. He's he's like, bring me everything beautiful inside the steamer. And then he's gonna run it off the cliff to break open the safe to get all the valuables.
Yeah.
He's a bad guy. But he's also got his own code of honor. And he fights a duel with Vash after Vash spends a bunch of time wounded fighting his own guys throughout the sand steamer to try and prevent this thing from getting cracked open. Vash goes to all this trouble. Dynamite's Neon fights a duel with them, and then Vash fires a couple shots, is about to get crushed by a giant rock that came off the wall of the canyon that they're in, and Dynamite's Neon saves Vash, and then saves everybody because he lost the duel. Brilliant Dynamite's Neon appears in 3 episodes. He appears in the 2 episodes in the steamer, and then he has a very short cameo near the end of the series where Vash's name suddenly starts to go around as he's just destroyed another big city. And you get to see, Neon basically like scowling as he hears this bad news about Vash and wondering whether it's true or not. And you get to see the whole arc of Neon going from, bloodthirsty villain to I kind of got my honor back at the end of the 2nd episode on the steamer. Do you know what they did with Brilliant Dynamite's Neon in Stampede?
Do tell.
He's gone.
Oh, he's just not in it?
Yep. The Bad Lads take the sand steamer, but Brilliant Dynamite Neon does not appear. It's just the Bad Lad gang people. And they run in, they don't even do anything.
So they're just like generic foot soldiers without the shredder.
And then Vash hits a couple of them and then they run off. And
it's all so stupid.
And then, you remember how I just mentioned that Wolfwood has this the orphanage in December, that there's kind of like the threat on them, and that's why he's doing what he's doing in the original series?
Yeah.
Here's how they handle it in Stampede. The city... So, one of Knives' dudes blows up part of the sand steamer, and he does it in such a way that he steers it into December. The city of December. Or the city, not the city of December, but the city where the orphanage is, because I don't think it's in December anymore. They got rid of most of the cities in Stampede. Like, in the original series, there's like, Vash and Meryl and everybody, they visit 10 to 15 different towns.
Yeah.
And not all of them are named after months. Some of them are, but not all of them are. And you get to see that there are villages that are surviving without plants. And you get to see that there are villages that are, that aren't surviving without plants. And you get to see villages that have plants that have problems, and all kinds of variety in the original series. They cut most of those out in Stampede. There's now 6 cities total, counting all the towns and everything. But so they took the orphanage and they put it in the city, and then one of Knives' guys blows up one of the axles on the sand steamer so that he basically makes it turn toward the city where the orphanage is. Ticking clock number 1. And then he also activates... It turns out that the sand steamer isn't something that they built on the planet. It turns out that the sand steamer in Stampede is actually part of a ship that's autonomous or something, ? Which doesn't make any sense because they had no idea that they were going to a desert planet in the first place. They just found that planet and said, this one's pretty good. Maybe we'll land here, maybe we won't. And then they get forced down there because of Knives. So there's no reason for this sand steamer thing to be on one of the ships originally. In the original series, it was a marvel of engineering made by people on the planet after they had crashed. It was something that they built to give themselves transportation across the vast oceans of desert. In Stampede, it's part of a ship and it has a giant ion cannon on it. And so they have one ticking clock, but then they create another ticking clock because at the same time as they're going to drive the steamer into the city and blow up the orphanage, they're also going to fire the ion cannon at the orphanage. And there's a scene where, I shit you not, Vash and Wolfwood get under this giant arm which is probably 100 yards long and made of steel, that contains the ion cannon, is the muzzle of the ion cannon, and they get under it as a giant machine is pushing it to aim it downwards at the thing, and they push it upwards with their hands.
No.
Because superhuman strength...
No, that didn't happen. I don't care what the actual show shows, it just didn't happen.
And it's worse than that, because in the original series, the orphanage was legitimate. It actually was a place where children lived who had lost their parents, to grow up and have good lives.
Well, in this show, it's a place where they live to take drugs and become super soldiers, so thank you.
Exactly. And so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that Wolfwood is that interested in saving it. Let them evacuate it, right? Let them evacuate and be somewhere else. It'd be better than being part of a involuntary drug super soldier program. But no.
They're all like, we'd rather die.
They get under this gigantic 100-yard long piece of metal, and they lift it with their hands. Why
have guns at that point?
Right?
They should be able to leap like 2 miles with the strength that they have.
Yep.
They're basically Supermen. Or super toddler.
Well, they are for that moment, and never ever again. Okay, another point.
This hurts. In the original series... This physically hurts.
Yeah, we're not done yet. When Vash is about to destroy Augusta in the original series, Meryl and Millie are going after him to try to get back to where he was. They were pulled away because he vanished for a while. And so they went back to their office jobs. And then when he reappeared, they got permission to go look for him again. There's this giant blue-white light coming out of the center of the city of Augusta. And Meryl, who is finally starting to realize that she actually cares about Vash, is about to just run headlong into this blue-white light of certain doom. And Millie, the one who often is kind of the more emotional part of the duo, she cares more about family and those kinds of connections. And that's part of what makes her character very important, is that she encourages other characters to feel deeper bonds with other characters. That's kind of part of what Millie does in that series. Meryl starts to run into certain doom, and Millie grabs her like a cat by the scruff and says, which is more important, your job or your life? And Meryl says, I need to go where he is. And only due to the fact that Millie physically drags her away does she survive that. Now that's Meryl's character. She's been antagonistic toward Vash, and then over time she's seen that he's actually not just a good person, but like an amazingly good person. And a good person who gets a really bad rap for things that are exactly the opposite of his fault. And she's just starting to kind of feel something for him. And she says, it's not even my job, but me getting back to where he is more important than my life at this point. There's a similar construction in Trigun Stampede.
Except Millie's not there, so Meryl just runs to her
No,
death,
Millie's
right?
not there. So yeah. No. It's her and Downer De Niro. And she wants to follow Vash when he goes to some other place. And Downer De Niro is like, well, no, this is getting way too big for us. We shouldn't bother with this. And her response is, as long as it's not a threat to my own life, we should still go on. How bass-ackwards is that? Oh, by the way, Meryl, in Stampede, unarmed for 11 of 12 episodes.
Yeah.
Now they think that what they're going to do is they're going to make her Derringer Meryl at the end of the series, because that's what happens. She gets Downer's Derringer. Downer De Niro's Derringer. And the implication is that, well, okay, so the end is even worse, because not only does she... It's so dumb. Because at the end of Stampede, after Vash has destroyed the city and his bounty's been up to 60 billion double dollars. She turns into like Sarah Connor from Terminator 2.
What?
Yeah, that's a thing that happens. She dresses up like Sarah Connor from Terminator 2.
Wait. You mean actually turns into...
Yeah. And she gets the Derringer from Downer De Niro.
What are you talking
And then they tell her that her work... They tell her that her work as a journalist has been so bad that they're going to move her over to the insurance wing of the company.
Oh, God. That's so bad.
So, let me explain something about how Derringers work. Derringers are very small, usually 1 or 2 shot pistols. They require extremely good physical, kinesthetic sense. Because generally speaking, they have minimal or zero sights, and they don't have enough grip that you can actually hold onto them and deal with recoil. And realistically, you don't have to deal with recoil for a Derringer because once it's empty, and you need to reload it. Now, in the original, Meryl, little known to everybody else until 4 or 5 episodes in, is actually Derringer Meryl. And she has, inside her coat, hidden 20 Derringers.
Yes, one of the coolest anime characters of all time, Derringer Meryl. Yeah. Again, someone who was introduced to us in the show as having enough competency to say, I need to be able to defend myself in my insurance investigation job.
Right, and it's not just that, because she's an absolute crack shot with these Derringers. Which means that she's had years of training. Years and years.
Alternately, she could just become Sarah Connor and have that crack shot training just magically appear as, mastery.
Well, it's not even that, because she has 20 Derringers in the original series, but she just has the one at the end of Stampede, as far as I can tell. Which, a single Derringer is not actually okay.
It's
the
not
kinesthetic
much.
sense that you need to shoot a single Derringer is higher than usual for a pistol, because of the limited sight radius, and the fact that you have 2 bullets coming out of one thing at the same time. And not only that, in order to become Derringer Meryl from the original series, you not only have to be very good at using and shooting Derringers, but you also have to be very good at drawing Derringers from your cape, coat thing, whatever. So there's at least 2 skills here that Derringer Meryl is highly, highly trained and well practiced at in the original. And at the end, and in Stampede, she picks up Downer De Niro's Derringer and dresses in a tank top, or like a tube top thing. It's Sarah Connor-esque. It's very weird.
So Derringer Meryl is really like single shot Strife in this version.
Yes, that's actually a very clever construction. Yes.
Yes, well, clever constructions are clearly what we're talking about here in discussing this show. This travesty of mankind.
Let's see.
I can't be nice about this. I watched an episode. I deserve to hurt people over this.
Okay, you remember how a very important theme in the original series is determination? And how Vash's determination to find a solution where he saves everyone is kind of the contentious point between him and Wolfwood? And it's also something that connects him to his past. Rem Save Rem loved the flower, the geranium. And in the language of the flowers, according to the original series, the meaning of the geranium, of a red geranium, is determination. We are shown red flowers in Stampede, and at no point is a connection to a geranium or determination made.
Well, yeah, in that first episode, when he runs into a red flower in the plant, his immediate reaction is worry.
Yeah, because they've also added a thing to the plants. So they ruined Knives' character by making him too
hot to handle?
Nonsensical. In the original series, his motivation was pretty basic. Number 1, make Vash suffer, so that he can gain kind of big brother leverage over Vash, right? His plan is to kill all of humanity because they're parasites. And he wants Vash, at the end, to accept that he will share this planet with Knives. And so he wants Vash to suffer, so that when all is said and done, and when the last human being has been exterminated, that Vash feels alone and sad and busted up enough that he goes back to Knives and says, "I'd rather be with you, monster, than be alone. And I'm no longer interested in punishing you for what you've done or any of that." That's pretty simple, but it's also very effective in the original series. It works really, really well. What they did in Trigun Stampede is they basically tried to make Knives more complex. And by complex, what I mean is they gave him a bunch of conflicting, nonsensical motivations that don't really make sense, while removing the one that did make sense.
So not complex, just stupid.
Yeah.
Fickle. Infirm of purpose. Weak as water.
His motivation is to steal all the plants.
Arsène Lupin.
And then put them into the red, nearly dead state for some reason, which didn't actually need to be done. Now, part of the reason why this doesn't make sense is that in Stampede they make it very clear that the plants that don't have their own wills, that aren't quote-unquote independents, like Vash and Knives, if they're left to their own devices, they will blow themselves up. They don't understand how to control their own power. And so there's actually a very clear symbiotic relationship between humans and plants in Stampede. The humans make sure that the plants only use up their energy at a slow rate. The plants are immortal, but they generate energy and water and food for the people. Clear symbiotic relationship. Obvious. So already Knives' original thing is dead. Because he's like, well, humans aren't parasites. We've established that they're not parasites. And so now Knives can't have that motivation anymore. So Knives' motivation becomes this. I am going to steal all the plants in the world, even though apparently they can be manufactured. I'm going to steal all the plants. I'm going to put them into this red near-dead state. And then I'm going to use Vash's special power, which is different from my power, to enter into the separate dimension where like will exists for the plants. And I'm going to impregnate all the dying plants with independence. And then we independents will find a place for ourselves, which may or may not be this planet. And I'm going to work with humans the entire time to do it. And not just a hand-picked group of fervently, insanely loyal crack gunslingers, but like random dudes and scientists. And I'm going to bankroll this crazy guy's desire to create human super soldiers with drugs, even though probably I'm going to kill all the humans, but maybe not, because I'm, after all, bankrolling this dude. But really, the core of my plan as Knives in Trigun Stampede is to impregnate all the non-independent plants, and then make more independents, and then do something. Now, this is stupid. Let's just start there.
Yeah, let's start there. Maybe if it was an entirely different show and it was like a 1-hour movie and that was the premise.
Yeah, right?
It could work, but
right, but like we already have the problem where it's clear that that humans aren't parasites. Then we have the very weirdness of impregnating a bunch of these weird flower women, which happens in a graphic way that I prefer not to continue to describe later in the series. Then we also have the fact that one of the very key points in the original series that's brought up at the very end is that Knives made these two guns that allow him and Vash to express their plant powers, to generate these massive energy blasts. And Knives says, when Vash points that gun at him, Knives says, I didn't make them to be used like that. And Vash says, they're practically meaningless otherwise. Now that's an interesting little philosophical point to just kind of get that in right at the end of the series, of the original series. Now, in Stampede, Knives can make knives, and Vash can make black holes and portals. So not only, the portal to the next dimension is something that only Vash can do. Knives can't. Knives and Vash's powers are completely independent of each other, and they don't cancel each other out, which is something that damages the interestingness of this story that's being told. Story in scare quotes. But yeah, that's what Knives does. He makes knives. He makes millions of knives, which makes it even dumber for them to call him Nye and not Knives. Because he literally makes millions of knives, and his name is Millions Knives. So they took a character who just had a cool name, and they said, let's make his name be what he does. And let's also systematically violate and kill any sensible motivation he had, and make him into some weird, like, pseudo-pervert that is going to
What do you mean
graphically impregnate several dozen plants at the same time. And, like, they inflate. It's very unsettling to watch. And then he's going to put Vash into another dimension. He's going to have Vash open up a portal to another dimension so he can go and get wills to put into all the plants that are going to be birthed from the other plants that he just impregnated. This is the story of Trigun Stampede.
So the story of Trigun Stampede is just,
and by the way,
kink-shaming knives.
He can control these knives, like, magically. He controls the knives, and he uses them at range because he can make these long, very long, like serpent-like things of knives, and he can just destroy a whole city with that. In fact, the first city that they show up in Trigun Stampede is Geneora Rock. And Geneora Rock is a city that appears in the original series, but it's a different city in the original series. Because what they do in this one is they jam-pack all the characters that Vash meets in the first half of the original series, and they jam them into Geneora Rock in the first 3 episodes of Stampede.
Stampede sucks.
So the one good thing, the one moderately interesting thing we get out of Stampede is that Govsef and his father, Nebraska, get turned into good guys for 1 episode, and then they vanish. That's not entirely true. One of them dies, and then one of them vanishes. That's the best thing that Trigun Stampede does, is it takes a character and turns him around in a way that gives him more depth. And then they throw him away. Because they didn't want to do that. That was a bad idea. But then they have Geneora Rock have a plant, and it has 2 plants, and one of the plants goes red, and so something's happening. Like, Vash tries to fix it, I think, partly. And so they show, like, in the first 2 episodes that Vash can engineer plants already, which was a pretty significant surprise in the original series. And they also show it graphically, so you know that he's, like, talking to the plant and not, like, actually a plant engineer, which they only half show first off relatively early, but not that early in the original series.
Well, they outright tell you that he is a plant engineer, so they don't really have to show it right away, but they do outright say it in that first episode.
Do it anyway. And he's clearly not actually engineering when he engineers them. He, like, puts his hands up against the glass, and then they unfold and they put their hands up against the glass. It's not engineering, it's something else. And they do that in, like, episode 2.
It's patty cake.
Yeah, well, it's like, you ever see those movies where there's a guy in prison and he puts his hand on the glass so the person he's talking to through the prison phone can also put their hand on the glass? It's that.
It's like, okay, we cool now? We cool.
Well, this concludes our second part of our look at Trigun Stampede, and it's not going to get any better. I'll just tell you that. Next time we'll finish up talking about the series, and, well, once we get past the horrors, we'll get into new horrors, because that's how Trigun Stampede works. So yeah, join us next week for the 3rd and final episode of My God, Trigun Stampede is a horrifying monstrosity that systematically kills and violates everything about the original. See you next week!
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair Podcast. Our passion is all things writing, world building, and getting into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We hope you enjoyed our unique takes. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to get your weekly dose of writing weirdness. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter. For Rudy, it's at Rudolph_Cone. And for Justin, at Ninja Mouse Chew. See you next time on the Wordy Pair Podcast.